I never actually believed in ghosts, maybe because I have never had any experience. But this incident has changed my whole perspective of the paranormal. This experience is not mine, it's my mother's. She works as a nurse in a hospital in Kolkata, West Bengal. The day this incident happened to her, she had to do an evening shift, and the day after that, she had a morning shift. During such consecutive shifts, my mom prefers to stay at the hospital in her room along with her colleague, rather than return home at night and again head back to work in the morning. On that day during her evening shift, she started running a fever, and by the time her shift was over, that is at 11 p.m., she was really sick. So she just informed a fellow doctor about her fever, and after a quick prayer, she's very spiritual, quickly went off to sleep in her room. Her roommate was on a night shift, so she was alone in her room. Anyway, she quickly dozed off to sleep. It was about 2 in the morning when she heard the door of her room open. She was surprised because she never sleeps with the door open, but she thought maybe she had forgotten to latch the door as she was very tired and sick. She saw someone dressed in a white coat. He had a stethoscope around his neck. She thought he might be a doctor who was on night rounds and came to check on her since she had informed earlier that she was sick. Suddenly, she felt unusually cold in her room, as if someone had switched on the AC. As the man approached her, she noticed that with every step he took towards her, his face started to change. And what followed was even more strange. His face took the form of every single person she had met in her life, including me and my family. She was petrified. She couldn't utter a word, forget screaming. My mom tried to be rational and thought she was hallucinating under the influence of fever. She blinked a few times and then looked at the figure. This time she noticed that he had a handsome but unfamiliar face and was standing right next to her by the bed. He did not speak to her or ask her any questions. He just reached out his hand and started checking her neck for temperature. By this time she was convinced that he was a doctor and nothing else. She noticed something quite odd though. As soon as he placed his hand on her neck, she noticed that his hands were very cold. When it got unbearable, she tried to get rid of his hand, but to her surprise, he reached out his other hand and started choking her. My mom was terrorized by this, and when she looked up to his face, it once again started taking shape of all her loved ones. She wanted to scream at that moment, but she couldn't even manage a whisper. That's when she realized that she had a Hanumanji, the monkey god, in her bag close to her bed. Luckily, she quickly reached out for it, and as soon as she held it in her hand, that creature, whatever it was, just gave out a howl and vanished into thin air. My mom quickly got out of the room, taking the Hanumanji with her. She fled to her friend's room, and after catching her breath, she told her everything. She was also startled on hearing this and said that she had had similar experiences in the hospital, like the lights going on and off on their own at night, and sounds coming from a closed room, etc. Anyway, for the rest of the night, she stayed with her and returned home in the morning after applying for a leave. When she came home, she tried to act normal and told my dad she wasn't feeling well. She seemed quite worried about something. When I asked her what was it, she was reluctant at first because she did not want to scare me, but I insisted and she shared her experience with me. I was shocked to hear that such a terrible thing happened to her since she was such a spiritual person. Mom still works at that hospital, but she never leaves home without her Hanumanji. I believe it was a very frightening experience for my mother and also for me. I definitely don't want to go to that hospital anytime in my life. Hope you loved this story, which was told by my mom. According to her, this is a true story, and she isn't faking it.